if we're going to continually beat ourselves up day in and day out and have that inner dialogue and the inner voice, that's only going to squash us. That's only going to bring us to a place of taming. We're not going to be untamed the way that we're created to be untamed. And to live this bold, adventurous, courageous life with a clear purpose.
This is the Untamed podcast, where only the few dare to go. We're building a community of adventurous high achievers who refuse to trade our dreams for comfortable mediocrity so that we can unleash our untamed potential. Could you be one of the untamed few? Now, your untamed hosts, Mark Lucas and Joel Fritz.
So Joel, I don't know, like you mentioned this when you came into my house last night. You asked my wife, actually, is Mark walking around and saying, this is tame, this is untamed, this is tamed, we need to be untamed? And I know, like, as we kind of orient ourselves to the messages of things that we're seeing and watching and marketing and all these images, you had this clear moment, even with your kids recently. You're like, that is.
Oh, I got to tell you this. Yes, I'm super excited about it because it was really funny how it happened. It was very recently, just last week. And The Lion King was on. And it's the new, they call it live action, you know, so you've got like, it looks real, but the lion's talking. So it's obviously not. But you know, I haven't seen The Lion King.
Wait, lions don't talk?
Well, the lions win, right? The Lion King, you know, I haven't seen that movie in a long time. The cartoon, I remember it, but I was pretty young. And so my kids, they're just watching it, and I stumbled on to a part right in the middle. And that part was really a climactic moment in the movie. Not the climactic moment, but a very important moment. And as I was watching it, I'll tell you in just a second, okay? But let me set this up, right?
You're excited.
So The Lion King, in The Lion King, you have Simba, you have Mufasa. Mufasa is the king of the jungle. Mufasa.
Say it again. Mufasa.
There you go. Perfect. So this is Mufasa, and then he has a little kid, and his squirt little kid, Simba, is dancing around, singing a song. I just can't wait to be king, you know? And so he's just doing his thing, but it struck me when I was watching this part later on that this kid knew his identity. At the beginning of the movie, he was confident in who he is, and he was basically like, I know this is going to be my role. I'm working on my roar, you know, like he's like, roar, and everybody's laughing at him because he's just this little kid. But this kid knew he was going to be king. Well, this part that I came to was right after Mufasa had been trampled by a stampede. And so the king of the jungle was dead, lying in a ravine, because Scar, his brother, was basically usurping the throne. And Scar was completely responsible for Mufasa's death. Sorry if I'm spoiling The Lion King for you, because somewhere you've been under a rock and you haven't seen this movie, you know. But
that's nobody.
But Scar has basically thrown Mufasa off the cliff, and he orchestrated the stampede. And Mufasa's trampled, and the king of the jungle is dead. And Simba is now, his son has come up to him, and he's walking around his dad. He's completely disoriented. And, you know, he recognizes his whole world, life as he knows it, is completely different at this moment. And then enters Scar, the guy who orchestrated the whole thing, the adversary in this movie, the villain. And he comes up to Simba, and he looks at him, and he goes, what have you done? And at that moment, I looked and I listened, and I didn't really remember this part, and I started banging on my wife's arm, and she's like, what are you doing? Quit it. And
watching the movie!
I'm pointing. She's like, shut up. I'm watching the movie, and I'm going, he's taming him. Right now, he's taming him. Look at what's happening. And my kids are in there, shut up, Dad. And I'm like, he's taming him.
Just want to watch the Disney movie.
And Scar. And Scar looks at this, he goes, what have you done? If you're the reason that your dad came down here. You're the reason that these buffalo trampled your dad. You're the reason that your dad is dead. What is everybody going to do? It's your fault. You should leave here and never come back. And what did Simba do? He left. He goes and finds Pumbaa, and there's this fun part of the story, Hakuna Matata, where he's becoming worry-free. And during that time, it's a really amazing thing, but he grows up and he becomes a large male lion, and he doesn't even know his identity. He's palling around with all these animals. These actually are lower on the food chain, and he's the apex predator.
Right.
And that makes the story really fun. But then there's this awakening that happens. This awakening is so powerful because, this is what you and I talk about. That was that moment where he was tamed, but then there's this awakening, and Nala comes in, the girl that he used to be buddies with, and now she's full grown. And she clues him into what's happening back home, but he still doesn't get it because he knows that he believes wholeheartedly, this is my fault. I've messed things up. I can't repair it. All of these lies, basically, that he's assumed and believed. Right. But he goes through this little process. It doesn't take long in the movie where he goes through an awakening and he realizes that he is the king. And if he doesn't return, there's nobody out there to take his place. Yeah. And when he embraces it, he goes back and he steps into his destiny, and the rest is history, right? That's the climax of the story. He fights Scar and he wins. And the pride is now protected, and everything is made right because he remembered, I just can't wait to be king. But there was that whole process of taming in there. And Mark, I just feel like that's what's happening to us every single day, right? That the forces, whatever they may be, are doing that. But it causes me to say, what a great illustration. And it makes me want to ask you, can you think of a time where something like that happened? Can you think of a time where a voice entered into your world and spoke lies over you that tamed you and took you away from even part of your destiny of who you are?
Such a powerful, beautiful story in The Lion King of this process of us listening to voices. And I remember there's one part as well that Scar says that you did say, but I just wanted to say it because it resonates deeply with me too. And that's the last words that Scar speaks to Simba in that moment is, run, Simba, run, and never look back.
Yeah.
Run. And that's really the truth. We've all had a moment where there's been this voice, either a voice inside of us or another person's voice, that has truly squashed and shattered dreams and desires that we have, ambitions that we have, mountaintops we want to conquer. And I think when you ask the question, I think there's obviously been a myriad of different voices that have done that in my life.
Yeah.
But I think the most consistent voice that's has caused the most damage has been my own voice. It's been my own inner dialogue of me listening to the thoughts and the words that crush me, that squash any ambition or any desire that I have to challenge myself,
right?
To take a new mountaintop, to experience a new adventure.
Yeah.
And I think when I ask myself, what are those words? What place am I at in those moments? I think there's our own inner dialogue, but then there's also some of the imperfections and some of the moments where we say, I'm not good enough, or I don't have what it takes. I couldn't do whatever that blank is. I couldn't achieve that or accomplish that. And I think when I even went back in the story, flashed way back to middle school, weird, awkward age of middle school, like really weird for all of us. Just it's a weird development age, just all kinds of weird stuff happening in our bodies. And I remember this moment of a teacher telling me, I think it was 7th grade year, Joel. She told me, she said, Mark, I've listened to you and your inability to speak and how often you stutter the entire year. And it's just a problem. It's a huge problem for you. And she began even in that moment to like put my identity into a place of saying, you're a blank, the label, a stutterer.
Right.
You can't communicate clearly, really. And you will be someone who stutters the rest of your life. And that's also what she told me. And I remember telling my parents that, and there was a process of even exploring a speech pathologist, and do I need that? And how am I going to get to a place of being able to communicate even just a few sentences in front of a class, in a presentation, raising my hand in class, speaking in public, speaking in a meeting in the future, speaking in whatever it might be, any and all public speaking moments. It just paralyzed me with fear. It paralyzed me to just a place of like, I just can't even imagine like really overcoming this and being able to speak.
Stuttering is not something you can hide, right?
Right.
You have to talk and you have to communicate. So it's not like you can remove yourself from that. Just avoid that. Like, hey, there's the kid, who just doesn't say anything. I mean, you have to talk, and as soon as you talk, everybody knows. You're exposed.
And the more nervous you get, the more I stuttered. Right. The more that I went out and spoke in any moment of class where you raise your hand or you're called upon. It was a lot. And then I think about even that kind of inner dialogue from that point and the journey that I've been on. To see, God, like, you give me the ability to be able to, for the last 25 years, be a communicator. Like, this is what I get to do.
As the core of your career. In front of large groups of people.
In front of large groups of people. On radio, groups, podcast settings. Like, you communicate not only like a sentence, you communicate sometimes for like over an hour.
Right.
In a way that's fluid. In a way that doesn't have any moment of like a hiccup or a pause or any of that. And I just think to myself, I mean, where I started in the origin of that, and the origin of me believing the voices, because it was easy for me for a long period of that, like 7th grade and 8th grade year, like just accepting that I'm probably just going to stutter. I'm going to be known as the goofy kid in middle school going into high school. Oh, that's Mark. He's a stutterer. And yet I switched to a place of saying, how do I just begin to just focus in on what causes me to stutter? Where is my mind at? Where am I at emotionally?
Right.
And even like just recently, I was sharing with you that as I've continued to allow really growth in that area, I even came to a place about, actually, I know almost to the day, about 500 days ago, where I realized that as I drink even just a few glasses of wine, just a little bit of alcohol, from that point on, in that night, there's just a lack of clarity of thought that translates me to a place of even beginning not to have clear, concise words. And even at times, stuttering. And I began to just kind of really wrestle with this and say, should I be more sober-minded and just say, I'm going to remove alcohol? So that I can, because I enjoy communication so much, and I love dialogue so much with people. And I love to engage in communication and dialogue in an authentic way with people.
So you don't want that messed up.
I don't even want that a little bit
take that
to
away
mess
from
that
you.
up. And
I mean, it's like the next step. It's like one is trying to keep you down, and then you realize, okay, no, this is who I am, and you step into it. You live your life like that, and now you're at the point where you don't want anything inhibiting it, even to a slight degree. Even though, like you could argue it's not going to be hardly any big deal. Maybe nobody will even notice the difference. And you're like, well, I noticed. I want to be the best.
It's exactly right. And the last thing that really has helped me in the whole journey has been recently just thinking through, like, Brene Brown is the first one that kind of introduced me to understanding proper self-care. And she focused a lot on speak to yourself the way that you encourage to speak to others. Encourage yourself, affirm yourself the way that you naturally encourage and affirm others. Like, what would it look like for me throughout my day to tell myself, Mark, I'm extremely proud of that moment when you did that,
Yeah.
or you said that, or you had self-control to not say that?
Yeah.
What would it look like for me to get better
Yeah.
at identifying those moments
Yeah.
and saying, what a beautiful practice to take care
Right.
of celebrating the growth and celebrating the process of being untamed?
Yeah.
That really pushes away the inner voice that is my own worst critic.
Yeah.
The inner voice that wants to criticize and beat me up
Right.
left, right, and center to a bloody pulp most days.
Yeah.
And it helps me combat that tendency to say, grow in your ability
Yeah.
to share things that you can celebrate
Yeah.
in what you're doing and how you're impacting others and how you're encouraging others and the things that you're doing where you're like, you know what? That's kind of good job. Like, I'm not going to do that because that's really weird, but like, good job
Right.
when I'm alone and I can just like ponder and say, you know what?
Celebrate some wins.
I'm stoked on that.
Yeah.
Like, that's something that I'm stoked on, because
Sure.
if we're going to continually beat ourselves up
Yeah.
day in and day out
Right.
and have that inner dialogue and the inner voice, that's only going to squash us.
Yeah.
That's only going to bring us to a place
Right.
of taming.
Right.
We're not going to be untamed the way that we're created to be untamed.
Yeah.
And to live this bold, adventurous, courageous life with a clear purpose.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And it's thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that, because that's so important. We don't know, and people who are joining us right now, we have no idea the voices that have spoken to them. I mean, they could have a real life person. I'll tell a little tiny story here, just saying, of a real life person who tried to tame me. It was kind of interesting, but it may be that inner dialogue. I think probably my biggest critic is my own inner dialogue as well. So I completely agree. I know so many people that are with us right now are experiencing that same thing. So they need to construct a healthier inner dialogue. That's part of the untaming process. But also part of that untaming process is becoming awake and aware of it, right? We have that awakening. And so at some point you went through that. But then when you were further along in the road, further through that untaming process, then you're like, wait a minute, this is who I am. Something tried to hold me back. This is who I am. I want to emerge even further, and I want to be the best that I can be. And so you're even taking it to the next level, and that's powerful. So I'm just very hopeful that the people with us are thinking, well, wait, I can put my finger on that, but it's hard to do because there's a lot of pain involved.
Yes.
And so my hope for the people that are with us are they would take the time. They would honestly go ahead and engage that, because it's the only way for healing. You know, it's the only way to move past it. So that's really probably the most important thing. And I said I'd tell this, so I better tell it quick.
Yeah.
There was this guy. This is a funny story. I was about 19 years old, and I was at a Bible college. And at the Bible college, I'd never picked up a guitar before, but I liked music, you know. And so somebody taught me a few chords, probably like D, G, C, whatever, right? I played these chords. So then I was like, yes, I can play my first worship song, and I'm going to lead people in worship. It's going to be awesome, right? So there's like 8 people around. I'm like, let's sing some worship together. And I'm like crooning, playing this guitar. And I get done, and I knew it wasn't special. Like, I definitely knew that nothing great happened there. But this guy sincerely came up to me afterward later, alone. He didn't do it in front of people. And he's just like, I just want you to know that worship, this singing thing and playing the guitar is just not your gift, all right? And it's not your gift. In fact, it's so bad.
Don't ever do it or something,
Don't
right?
ever, you should probably never pick up a guitar again
Spat on you
for the
and
rest of your
stepped all
life.
over you. Yeah.
Like,
The dream
okay,
squasher.
what do you say? Like, this is a direct,
Thank you, I guess.
direct exchange.
For slapping me across the face.
Thank you. I'll take that into consideration, brother.
I'll pray about that one.
You're like,
yeah,
okay,
right.
let's. I don't know, but
Yeah.
nevertheless, I think it had an effect. Well, I'm not good. Maybe I should put this down and never do this again. You want to know how that story wraps up? A couple years later, I'm in a college setting. I'm off at university, and people playing guitars around me, and I'm like, I want to try this again. Learned a few more songs, started singing, realized that I could sing on key. 2 years after that, I was a worship pastor at a church.
Yes. Was he in the audience? Probably not.
Wish,
Yes, yeah.
right? And that actually became a part of my life for 10 years. You know, I led worship at
You met your
the
wife? in a
college. I met
worship
my
setting?
wife. My
Yeah.
wife was coming because there was
Right.
hundreds of people that would come each week for the chapel service that we do at the university that we met each other at.
Right.
You know, so it actually became a part of my life. Now, I'm not claiming to be great. I'm a better cheerleader, honestly, than anything, you know, like really leading people from the stage. But I could play the guitar well enough and hold a note well enough to be able to lead people.
Yeah.
But somebody didn't think so, and they told me something. But that wasn't my destiny.
Yeah.
You know, like, and that's not who you know, that wasn't who I am.
Right.
So, but I had to confront that, get over it, and move on. And that is a big part of the process that every single one of us has to go through. It's the process that you and I really hope to be able to participate with guys in, so that they can become the clear, courageous men on their paths of purpose that they are supposed to be. Because this world, we need them. We need these guys. They may be few, but we need them.
We do. And the last thing I'll say is thank you for your vulnerability and sharing that story. I think begin to process as you listen to this. What are those inner voices?
Yep.
What are you telling yourself? What are the negative messages that you're speaking over your life?
Yep.
Maybe on a daily basis.
Yep.
But I can't thank you enough that we have this beautiful, untamed few that are in this journey with us.
That's right.
Looking forward to doing this with you.
Yep.
What another great episode we had here today. So
yeah, and
let's go.
I can't wait. There's got to be some adventures coming. We want to do some adventure retreats coming up. Maybe
Join the Facebook group.
Yeah, join the Facebook group. Tell us where you want to go. We've got that. You can follow Mark, Authentic Impact Coaching on Instagram and
Calling
Facebook.
coach for you.
Calling Coach, TikTok.
Let's go.
All right, let's do it.
Let's do it.
If this episode sparked something in you, please subscribe and even share it with someone who's ready to take their life to the next level. We're always on the hunt for men who are looking to become untamed and release their untamed potential. Also, if you found value in this conversation, then please rate the podcast and leave a comment. It makes a huge impact in building our community. We'll see you next time when the adventure continues, or maybe when yours begins.